Welcome to the second video on subprograms. So in part 2, again this is preparing you for GCSE, covers everything you need to know. We're going to focus on local variables. They're really important and we'll do some practice with those. We'll also look at global variables, and I've got some tasks for you to have a little go at using local and global variables. So again, hopefully if you've got a pen and a pencil and a bit of paper, you can make some notes and you can try answering some of the questions. So um, local variables are variables that are declared or created and used only inside the subprogram itself. So if you have a look at the code on the left hand side here, if you want to pause the video and do that, have a look and can you see any local variables inside here in the subprogram? So hopefully you had a look and you can see that answer meets the definition of a local variable. It's a variable that's declared or created inside the subprogram itself. Okay, so answer is a local variable created inside the add subprogram. Now, num1 and num2 here, these are parameters. So parameters act a little bit like local variables. So they only exist whilst the subprogram is running, and they can only be accessed inside the subprogram. So they act a little bit like local variables, but they are parameters. Okay, so each subprogram can only use the variables that are created inside it or are passed to it, i.e. the parameters. So these local variables and the parameters only exist while the subprogram is running. When the subprogram has completed or is finished, these local variables, you can see that I've put that in bold there, they're deleted from memory. So that's quite an important concept. So we've got local variables are variables that are declared or created inside the subprogram. Once the subprogram has finished, these, or the values that these variables were pointing to or holding, are deleted from memory. So have a look at the code here. If you want to pause the video and see if you can, before I put the output on the screen, see if you can figure out what it will output, and then we'll talk about what it does. Okay, so I'll put the output on the screen here. So we've got answer 7 and then we've got an error. So it's important to remember the local variables are declared and created inside the subprogram, and they only exist whilst the subprogram is running. So if let's talk this through line by line. So first of all, we've got our subprogram, lines 1 to 4. So that's processed and held in memory, waiting to be called. Line 6, we call it. We've got two arguments, 3 and 4. So 3 is passed to the first parameter, num1. 4 is passed to the second parameter, num2. So we know what num1 and num2 are. Num1 is 3, num2 is 4. So we can add them together. 3 plus 4 is 7, and we can assign that to this local variable answer. Then on this line, we can output the word answer and the value that answer is currently pointing to or storing, which is 7. So you can see output answer 7. Then the subprogram finishes. When it finishes, we carry on after the call. Now when we try and output answer, we get this error because answer is not defined, because these values here, the value that answer was storing, if you like, has been deleted from memory. When the subprogram finishes, these values are deleted from memory, so we get an error. I'll give you some chance to practice these in a little bit with some extra questions. So the variable answer is a local variable created inside the add subprogram. Num1 and num2 are parameters and exist like local variables inside the add subprogram, but they're the parameters. So we can output answer 7 like we just worked through. However, num1, num2 and answer are all deleted from memory when the add subprogram finishes. So when we get to this line here, line 8, it says on line 9, but it's actually line 8, we try and output answer, we get an error because answer was deleted from memory when the subprogram finished. Right, global variables. Global variables are declared or created outside of the subprogram. So can you see any global variables in this code? Again, if you want to pause the video and just have a look, see if you can spot them, and then we'll talk through where they are and what they do. Okay, so there's two global variables. They're They're created or declared outside of the subprogram. So they're global variables. And what that means is that global variables can be seen by all the other parts of the code, all the other parts of the program, all the subprograms. They can all see num1 and num2. And they can all use those values as well. So you can see in our subprogram, answer 1 is num1 plus num2. So num1 is 3 and num2 is 4. Answer 2 is num a plus num_b. So they are our parameters. So when we call the subprogram, we pass 2 to num a and we pass 1 to num b. So we can use those inside our subprogram. Now, these global variables, however, can cause problems because they exist the whole time the whole program is running. That means we can't control whether the subprograms can see them or not, because they can see them, and that can cause problems. So they can be seen by and accessed by every subprogram at any time. Whereas if we use local variables, we have much tighter control over what's going on. But sometimes people use global variables because they just sometimes they make things a bit easier, because you can create two variables and you don't have to worry about subprograms seeing them or not. But it's not good practice. It's much better practice to use local variables. But it's important to know the difference and how to spot them. So with that in mind, if you want to pause this slide, have a go at these two questions. Identify any local and global variables in this code and work out what will be output. So pause the video, then press play, and we'll see how you got on. Okay, so we've got answer. That's a global variable, and global variables are held in RAM while the whole program is running. So while the entire program runs, these global variables exist and can be accessed by any part of our code. We've got a local variable called answer here. Now, these are still held in RAM, but they're held in a separate part of RAM, and they only exist while the subprogram, or in this case it's a procedure, which is one of the types of subprogram, as you know from the last video, and they're holding a part of RAM called the stack. Now, you don't need to know how this works, or you don't need to know about that for GCSE. It's certainly something worth looking at, but we just need to know that they're held in their own separate part of RAM, and when the subprogram finishes, that information is deleted from the RAM. Okay, so in terms of the output, so let's just run this through. So answer is a global variable that's held in RAM. Our subprogram is held in RAM, waiting to be called. We call it add36. We've got our two arguments. 3 is passed to the parameter num1. 6 is passed to the parameter num2. So we know what num1 and num2 are. We can add them together. So 3 plus 6 is 9. We can assign that to the variable answer, the local variable answer, and we can output the word add and 9, which is what answer is currently storing. There we are, add 9. Now our subprogram finishes and we carry on after the call line and we print answer. Now we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because answer is this global variable here. The answer that was inside the subprogram has been deleted from memory and no longer exists. So when we try and print answer, it's looking through all the variables. It can find a match here, this global variable, so we output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's a good sort of simplified way of looking at a global variable and a local variable. Hopefully that made some sense, because you got a chance to practice another question. Oh, and if you want to try this, this is the I just put this bit of Python code on here. You can write this out, go to an online compiler, and you can actually see this working, and you can sort of play about with the numbers and the local and global variables and see how they work. Anyway, let's have another go at another question, task 5. So same again, identify local and global variables, work out what the output will be from this program. Pause the video, have a go, press play, and then we'll talk through the answers. So we've got length, height, and area. They're all global variables. We then got our subprogram, and we've got perimeter, which is a local variable. In terms of the output, so when we run this code, length, height, and area are assigned and held in RAM. They're global variables. They're waiting to be used. Our subprogram is also put into RAM. It's waiting to be called. We call our subprogram with its name, call square perimeter, and we've got this argument 12. So we call square perimeter. Here it is. We pass the argument 12 to the parameter width. We can process that. So we got our local variable perimeter, which is going to be width, which is 12 times 4. 12 fours are 48. We can output perimeter, which is 48. We finished our subprogram, so this value perimeter is now deleted from memory. We carry on with the program. Area is length times height. Length is 12, height is 10. 12 times 10 is 120. So we can output area. Awesome. Right, now we have task 6. Same again. Pause the video, have a go, and then we'll press play and we'll work through the solution together. Okay, so first of all, identify local and global variables. So we've got two global variables at the top here, height and area. We've got inside our subprogram, we've got width, which is a local variable, and we've got perimeter, which is also a local variable as well. I think that's all of them. So when we run this program, height and area are global variables. They're held in RAM, waiting to be used, and they exist the whole time the whole program is running. Our subprogram is also put into RAM. It's waiting to be called. We then call it, so it's called square perimeter. That's the name of our subprogram, and we've got this argument 10. That's passed to the parameter length. So let's see what we do with that. So width is a local variable. It's assigned 8. Then perimeter is a local variable, and we are multiplying width by 2. So 2 times 8 is 16, and we're adding that to the length times 2. So length was the parameter 10, so 2 times 10 is 20. 20 plus 16 is 36. We can output perimeter, which is 36. Great. Our subprogram finishes, so these local variables are deleted from memory, and our program carries on. So area is length times width. Now we've got a problem here because, well, length was one of our parameters. That no longer exists, and width was a local variable which also no longer exists. So we're actually, when we try and output area, we don't even get to that because we can't work out what area is because we don't know what these two are because they don't exist anymore. So we're going to get an error. Area width is not defined. Okay, so let's, width was a local variable and deleted when the subprogram finished, so we get an error here. Okay, let's have a go at task 7. Same again. Pause the video. Once you finish, press play, and we'll see what the answers are. So local and global variables. So age 1. Age total, number of people, these are all global variables. Then we've got our subprogram. Inside our subprogram, we've got this variable average here that we are declaring or creating inside the subprogram. So that's going to be a local variable. So again, let's see what happens. So we run our code. Age 1, age total, number of people are held in RAM, and they're going to be there the whole time the whole program is running, waiting to be accessed by any part of our program. Good to know. Then we've got our subprogram here, average age. That's held in RAM. It's waiting to be called. Okay, we have a call, and we're calling average age, our subprogram. We've got two arguments, 19 and 20. So 19 is passed to the parameter h2, 20 is passed to the parameter h3. So can we work out average? Average is age 1 plus age 2 plus age 3. Well, we know what age 2 and age 3 are because these are our two parameters, but we also know what age 1 is because age 1 is a global variable, and we can see that. So we've got 18 plus 19 plus 20 divided by 3. So that's going to work out the average. So if we add those together and divide by 3, we are outputting 19. So it's 19.0 because we're introducing a divide here, we're actually creating a float or a real data type, so it's going to have a decimal point in it, so 19.0. And then we're also outputting number of people. So number of people is one of our global variables up here, so we can see that because it's global, so we can output 30. Okay, then we end procedure. So average is now deleted from memory because remember it's a local variable. So we carry on after the call. So when we try and output average, we should get an error because average is no longer defined. It no longer exists. Okay. So average was a local variable and was deleted from RAM when the subprogram finished. So we get an error here. Right, so that's the end of this second video. Hopefully it's been useful. In the last video, I'm going to get you to do a little bit of practice writing some nice little simple subprograms using pseudocode. So hopefully you get a chance to look at that. Thank you very much for watching.